Hello and welcome to another edition of Under the Microscope. I'm your host, Michael Young. Thanking you very much for joining us. This evening, we're going to continue our discussion with respect to the National Assembly, the 10th Parliament, and developments therein. We're also going to be discussing several topical issues with respect to Guyana's development. With me to have this discussion, of course, are several members of Parliament from the ruling People's Progressive Party, Civic. We have with us Member of Parliament Manzoor Nadir, who's also a former tourism minister. We have Education Minister Priya Manickchand, and we have the Presidential Advisor on Youth Empowerment and MP, Mr. Odinga Lumumba. Welcome to Under the Microscope.
Thank you.
Now, a lot of things are happening in Parliament, and Guyanese are discussing almost in every nook and cranny what is going to happen on Monday. Our discussion is going to focus on the genesis of all that is taking place in the 10th Parliament, and we're going to seek to try to educate viewers and ourselves about all that we can expect over the next coming weeks. First of all, as MPs, your own analysis and assessment of the 10th Parliament. Let's start with you, Nadir.
An assessment of the 10th Parliament has been one of challenge. His Excellency President Ramatar and the PBPC administration during this 10th Parliament has been severely tested. And to get on with the issue of national development, cohesion, consensus building, that has been a most challenging task, dealing with a very stubborn opposition and one which has just access to grain and issues that are more contentious rather than consensual building being put on the table. So for this 10th Parliament, apart from some of the committees where we have seen some amount of the national good being put forward, it has been a most challenging one.
What is your perspective, Minister?
We came into the 10th Parliament with new circumstances in our country. In fact, for the history of Guyana, we've never had a minority government. And so this was going to be uncharted waters for all of us, both sides, or all three sides. And so I didn't expect it to be easy. It was always going to be challenging because when people generally have to find a new way to live, a new way to go forward, there are always going to be hiccups. And we have seen some of those hiccups. I don't believe what we are encountering is insurmountable. I think we can still find a way forward, all of us, because like any new relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, you have to find a way to how do you work together to do what's best for that relationship, what's best for the people who will benefit from that relationship, children, communities, and so on. And so I still think that it was not, I didn't expect it to be easy. I expected there to be a bumping of heads and a clashing of opinions and so on until we find our way in how to serve the Guyanese people, how to do what people have put us there to do, serve them and serve them best. And I think that's essentially what we've been trying to work out amongst the parties. Manzoor has said it well. We've had challenges in the government, and I'm sure the opposition would say they had challenges too. But I still don't think we're at a place where we cannot resolve how we will go forward together if we truly love Guyana and her people. So,
your take, Odinga, your thoughts about the 10th?
Well, it's not just the 10th Parliament. I think the term of being of President Ramatar in Parliament has been problematic in the sense that I think the opposition has misinterpreted what the one-seat majority means. They have interpreted that to mean that they are government and they should govern. If you look carefully at America, for example, as an example, the Republicans now control the Senate and the Congress. But you will see that they will work with President Obama. Some things he will succeed, some things he will put aside. But America will continue to run. America will continue to function. America will continue to be a great nation. In our case, chaos. If you look at the hydro dam, they stopped it, they blocked it. The specialty hospital, they stopped it, they blocked it. Once they don't agree with something, they stop it or they block it. And I think that's not how government should function. I don't think that's the role of the opposition. I think the role of the opposition is to point out defects in legislation, on the defects on how we've been administered, and create a situation where we can listen. And from listening, we can work together. But that has been absent. So what we have today is the opposition continue in a certain mood, in a certain fashion, to create a state of fear, to create an hysteria. On a daily basis, we can't manage, we can't run. How can you say a government can't manage? A government was a record of completing thousands of miles of roads. A government has a record of distributing 90,000 house lots and moving, and a government has a record of building and reconstructing 1,000 schools. A government has a record of developing and making functional dozens and dozens of hospitals and health centers. A government that has a record. This government, when it came into power, Guyana was at the bottom of the Caribbean education. Today we're doing well, we are at the top in the exam, CXC, UAW, GC, etc. So we had to be doing something right. We could not have been wrong things. Every village you go, I was born in Buxton. And I remember in Buxton that there were no roads, period, except mud roads, or roads with big, heavy bricks. Today, all the roads are done. And this is not just Buxton. And Buxton technically is a PNC village in terms of political support. But yet, you go to Buxton, you won't believe that it's a PNC support village. We don't look at a village as PNC or PPP. We look at the village as being part of Guyana. So we have done extremely well. You take someone from Mars who was being here 30 years ago and bring them back again, they will see the difference and the things that we have done. So we must have been doing great things. So you can't wake up in the morning and say, let's have a no confidence vote, let's get rid of them. It's evil. Mm-hmm. It's not a serious political position. And this is broader concern for us, not as a political party, but as Guyanese.
Okay. Now let's discuss. There's a school of thought that suggests that the 10th Parliament has failed. It has failed as far as advancing Guyana's development on certain projects, as far as certain projects are concerned. It has failed in terms of achieving consensus building and that sort of, I don't want to say rapport or working relationship among parliamentarians to take the whole country forward. How would you respond to those Guyanese who are very disappointed at this point in time with Parliament as a whole, whether it is government, whether it is the opposition, because they feel a sense of tension, a sense of dissatisfaction, regardless of of the political games that are happening within the Assembly? Let's start with you first, Minister.
You know, when Guyanese went to the polls in 2011, when we went to the voting booth and they voted, they said to the country, this is what they want. They want a parliament that looks like this. I don't think they expected children. I don't think they expected this kind of infantile behavior. I think they expected of us that we will find a way to work together to make sure their lives are better. That is our mandate, the parliament's mandate. And so I would understand their intense disappointment with us. Yes. Given that we have been unable really to do much that we have promised both sides, because we have not been able to do much in the sense of moving legislation and so on through. Guyana has had various different configurations. In the last parliament, in the 9th parliament, we passed a whole host of legislation. Let's take for children and women. We passed more than, I think, nine pieces of law. Every single piece was done unanimously. We didn't have a vote on it. We didn't have disagreement that could not be resolved. All of these things went to select committee. Take the sex offences bill. That was always, for any country, that's a hard piece of legislation to pass through because it has so many different dynamics.
Yes.
People from my own party, people who I love and respect, had difficulties with some of what was in the bill. People from the other side had difficulties with what was in the bill. Women had different views from men, and so on. But we got together and we sat down, we trashed those out, and we passed it to the benefit of Guyana and the people of Guyana. So we don't, when we get in there, we should really have one thing in mind. What will benefit Guyana and the people of Guyana? Not which party should be in, get this one-upmanship, which party should be seen to be superior. That serves no one. And one of the distressing things now is the education bill. I mean, we have an education bill in Parliament. I cannot tell you how heavy my heart is right now, because this is for the first time since independence, Guyana is going to chart her own course with what we want education to be, what we want it to look like in law. This bill is going to give parents the right to go see what's happening in their children's classroom. It's going to direct the way forward regarding private education and public education. It's going to define the rights of children and the rights of adults, teachers, and so it's going to provide this landscape, legal landscape for the future of education in Guyana. And this is a bill that is in jeopardy of failing if we can't find a way around what are these, in my view, power struggles in the parliament. The people of Guyana did not say to the opposition, we want you in government. They said, we want you in parliament with this majority. And I would expect, I think what they wanted the opposition to use that majority for is to push for better. They, unfortunately, as Odinga has mentioned, there seems to be a misinterpretation by the opposition of what that majority should mean. It cannot mean that you're now in government. It can't mean these things that they're trying to do, these things that they're trying to push through or stop from going through would really be people who are in the executive government that could stop that and that could make those kinds of decisions. But there's still so much scope to work together. I mean, we have a duty to lay the education bill. We have done that. I have committed to the opposition parties that, and let me just say this, we go to Parliament and we work in Parliament, but there's also a lot of work going on outside. Every month, or sometimes we don't actually meet, but every month the Shadow Minister of Education, Amna Ali, and Kathy Hughes, who represents the AFC, we have meetings. We've missed a couple of months, but we have meetings on the future of education. They tell me what they think we should be doing. We listen, we do some of it, whatever can be done given our own mandate and agenda and so on. We tell them what we plan to do. I have shared the bill. I have agreed that if it is going to make if it's going to be more beneficial to Guyana, that we will take this bill to select committee. We have shared the draft regulations that we have. So there's so much scope to work together if we could just get over this infantile grab for power, this egotistical grab for power. There's going to be a time when the people of Guyana is going to be able to look at us and judge us and decide who they want who they want in executive government. Let's give them that chance.
Manzoor, do you understand the dissatisfaction of the people at this time with respect to the Parliament?
There is some amount of dissatisfaction, and Priya has hit the nail right on its head. But the issue has to be a bit more than just this grab for political power. And I want to emphasize the infantile behavior that Priya mentioned, because many times you are so close and then you hear someone get up and say, oh, Odinga just mentioned something to me, and he gets or she gets angry, and everything gets tossed out of the window. And it's no different than what is happening now with the no confidence motion. Some amount of good has occurred in the 10th Parliament. We've had quite a few pieces of legislation that went through, yes. But by and large, those are the low-hanging fruits that anybody could grab. The prize is always be the fruit at the top of the tree, yes, that you have to exert some greater effort to reach. And of course, they're well-ripened, they're seasoned, and they're going to taste best. And those big prizes have eluded us. And again, it's not because of what the government is doing is wrong. Look how long Odinga mentioned a very important one, the hydro. Had we been on board with that hydro, in 2 years' time, we would have been turning on lights here, there, and everywhere. Yes. And looking forward to a future of little rise in the price of electricity. That has to be for the good of everybody. It has to be for the good of everybody. But you do have a number of persons on the opposition benches who behave very erratic, irrational, sometimes.
Okay.
And jeopardize a lot of the good that we have had. And when the government, we have to go back a bit, you know, sometimes we forget quite quickly. Like I was in Grove the other day, and it's the second time in a few years we are repaving all the streets in Grove. But you'll hear people standing up, and I'm using Grove as an example,
Yes.
and say nothing has ever been done in this community. Nothing has ever been done in this community. This is the second time we're repaving the roads in that one community. And it's gotten so good, they're now insisting that speed bumps be put because people are driving too fast. So when the roads had a few potholes, that would have accomplished the same thing. But something like that, you'd hear people mouthing that nothing has ever been done for them. Similarly in Parliament, you can't see the opposition saying any good that the government has done. And hence, their no confidence motion. But that no confidence motion is driven by something else. Outside of, I would emphasize the infantile behavior. Priya mentioned the issue of this grab for power. People feel that the last elections, they missed the power by just a little bit more effort. And they want to test that again at the expense of the nation. The 8 years of economic growth we've had, the accumulation of wealth the country has had, and I'm not talking about who better off at the local
Yes.
level. The accumulation of wealth as the consolidated funds grow so to be able to redistribute. For example, a $10,000 voucher, right? That has happened because we have had an irresponsible government. That's happened because we've had a government that's responsible, but more particularly operated in an environment of political certainty and stability. And what we've had in the past 3 years is that element of political stability and uncertainty has really frightened away people from putting in the extra effort to lay strong taproots right here in Guyana. I'm not going to talk about investors coming. I'm just talking even our own little effort. 300,000 households putting in an extra effort of $50,000 a month or a year in effort to build their families and their communities is going to be far more than any $10 million or $100 million investment coming into the country. And that has shaken the level of person's motivation to get ahead too. And you'd have the vocal few who will always blame politicians and particularly the government in this instant. But Priya has said it, we certainly have enough time to bring political consensus to get back to the table. We should look at the PPPC record that every time we have been challenged, the PPP has put national interest forward. When we had in '97 the challenge to our democracy, we had the intervention of CARICOM, we saw a whole new dispensation, Parliament being managed by a committee equally comprised 5 members from the opposition and 5 from the government, and the Speaker as the chairperson, yes. Right? We've had also a review of the standing orders. A committee that spent almost 9 months. Odinga, you were in that committee? Where we revised the standing orders. Only a few.
Yes, yes.
Right? Revise the standing orders. But today, the opposition parties feel 1 or 2 standing orders are not in their best interest. And they want to rewrite the rules for a particular occurrence, not to ensure that rules are set that can really withstand the test of time and all the idiosyncrasies of politics.
Let's fast track. The President's speech, the President's address to the nation on Tuesday. Are you surprised at the opposition leader's response to that address and the manner in which it has been interpreted? If I recall correctly, President Ramadar outlined all that his administration has been trying to do in terms of seeking to build consensus and move Guyana forward on the developmental trajectory. The opposition leader, he also said that if Parliament cannot deal with matters that are of utmost importance, including the education bill which you mentioned, that he would be forced as president to exercise his constitutional power to either dissolve or prorogue the parliament. The opposition sees that as a threat. They say that it's a cowardly move on the part of President Donald Ramadar and his administration, and that the PPP is weak and fearful. Your response, Mr. Odinga.
Well, the PPP has never been weak. That's a very strange argument. The PPP has a history of dozens of years of combating dictatorship under the PNC government. Certainly a weak party and a coward, but Mr. Granger should know better because he was in the military at that point in time, and the PPP stood up to him and his guns when he was a political czar in the army and when he was supporting undemocratic measures, including rigging of elections. So it's a strange statement. I think the president has, first of all, the president's statement and his present position, Mr. Granger has been asking for a local government election.
Yes.
The president says very clearly that there will be local government election in the second half of 2015. The second half is June or before the end of June. He also said that he needed that time because GCOM has made it very clear that they need 6 months to put the house in order. This is not our call. This is GCOM call. So the president has spoken, so now it's up to the local government minister and GCOM to resolve that issue. I don't know how clear, what a clearer statement Mr. Granger needs than that.
He says
so,
he needs a date.
What date? Mr. Granger went to Queen's College. I would assume he has some level of intellectualism. The president has said the second quarter of 2015, which means not later than the end of June. However, he has made it clear this is the requirements of GCOM. Mr. Granger needs to now ask his commissioners to find out from GCOM when can they do it, what date can they bring it in, and the president will have no problem responding to that. He's finished with that.
Yes.
On the question of this parliament, the president has made it clear that he has his governmental agenda to carry out. And if you're going to go with a no confidence vote and obstruct the government's work, he has to take whatever measures he has to take as a leader to proceed. The country which is seen as the cradle of democracy is America. And you have seen the countless times that President Obama, President Clinton, John Kennedy, and many have used executive power and executive authority to carry out what they perceive to be the national agenda. We're not doing anything that's abnormal, that's outside the cradle of democracy.
Oh.
And let me make this very clear. We have no desire, neither does the president, to hang on to power forever and deny the Guyanese people the right to select the next government or the future government. Whatever measures that we take or the president take is temporary measures. And Mr. Nadir said earlier, we anticipate that during that period of time, whatever that period of time may be, and whatever the period of time that is bounded by the Constitution, that as adults from both parties, or the three parties, we will continue our dialogue to bring sanity to this position, because the opposition position represents insanity, political insanity. The president wishes to bring sanity and normalcy to this system and this procedure. So we're not asking for time to hold on to power. The PPP knows how to win elections. They know how to do the groundwork. They know how to work. They know how to convince the voters. We have on record, we can compare ourselves with that of PNC. We can compare housing, health, education, infrastructure development. Then we can talk about the big ticket items that was sabotaged by the opposition. Member Parliament Nadir spoke about the hydro dam and what the consequences would have been if that project had succeeded, what it means for the manufacturing industry and the creation of jobs. He spoke with the specialty hospital, which would allow an ordinary person to fix his heart or his liver or his lungs without dying in bed in Enmore or Buxton or Berbice, as opposed to the wealthy who can afford to jump on a plane and go to Miami and fix the internal organs. They killed that. Every big ticket, significant item that would bring good to this country, the opposition has blocked.
But then, yes, go ahead.
Look, like I said, these are new times for Ghana. Ghana is very young. We're very young. We just got independence. We're a very young nation. These are different times. This is the first time we have this kind of configuration in Parliament. First, there used to be the PNC used to have this incredible majority through rigging, of course, but they had a majority and the PPP was in minority. We now have this, and then the PPP was the majority in parliament for many years. And so now we have this thing where the PPP is in government, but they're not a majority in parliament. Resolving that, finding a way through that, navigating that kind of configuration was never going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but pretending. So this is a problem. Let's call this Ghana's problem, the present problem we have to resolve as a nation. How are we going to navigate through these new configuration? The thing that the people of Ghana said they wanted. That's a hard thing to do. You got to find sensible people, responsible people, people who are patriots and love this nation and will put the nation first to navigate through that. And I think for me, as a young person looking on, this is the test. This is the test to see who loves Ghana, who doesn't. And for me, in many ways, I'm disappointed. I'm not going to name the names in the I'm disappointed in Mr. Granger. Let me say that. Very, very disappointed. I always expected wildness from the AFC. They are wild people. That's my view of them. They are hungry for power, hungry for personal kudos, and so they will do wild things. They are the people Robert Corbyn, in my view, referred to as wild men. So they don't disappoint me. This is behavior I expected from them. But I did expect more from Granger and Brooke Narine, more statesman-like behavior. And by that, I don't mean not quarreling or fighting with the PPP, but doing it in a constructive way that doesn't break up the whole country, break down Guyana, destroy all that we have come to as a young nation. And what do I mean by that? I mean, we have to find a mature way around this thing. Let us say we go back to an election today, tomorrow, next week, and the people of Ghana said, you know what, y'all didn't learn your lesson. Go back in there and learn how to govern together in the interest of this nation. Are we going to call an election next year again? Or the following year? What happens? No country is going to be able to sustain growth and stability if every single year they have an election. In fact, that is why countries all over the world have a time within which governments are allowed to govern and a time for elections and so on. It's to bring some stability to that country. And so you asked specifically about the president's statement. The president's statement was very mature. It was, in my view, considered action that would bring stability to this country. It was, in my view, too, the only thing that he could do. But it was the statesman in him acting. It would have been very sexy to just say, you know, broke up everything. Forget all this. Y'all playing the fool, elections. But that would not be a responsible president. That would not be the person that I could look to and say, well, here is somebody who, after considering this nation and considering what's good for Guyana, is making decisions. This would have been somebody who, for me, would have been recklessly doing something that could appear to be popular. So let me say what the president has said. He has said, listen, we want to see a normal parliament. We want to see parliamentary normalcy. Let me define that. The president was not saying that APNU and AFC, you have to agree with everything we said. But he was saying resolve your issues in the structure that the country and the Constitution has in place right now. Resolve them in there. So, the no confidence motion, which is most likely going to be passed if it is debated because of the configuration, the numbers in Parliament, will bring an end to everything. It's going to bring an abrupt end to everything. The education bill goes down the drain. Forget the 300,000 children and their parents who are relying on us to do what's good for them. And by us, I mean us in the government and the opposition, us in the parliament. Forget trying to break this monopoly for telecommunication, in the telecommunication sector, because we have a telecommunication legislation in there too. And all the other laws that are pending. The president didn't say, forget all of that. We can just go to election and teach you a lesson. So he did what was mature. He did what was best for the nation and the best interest of the people of this country. And he said, these are the options we have, and this is what we could possibly do. And I think what he's essentially doing, this is my reading of it, I can't say that I've spoken to him since this statement, is let's pause. Let's put a pause on this wildness and give everybody a chance to see if this would really be what is in the best interest of Guyana. And that is what his indication to me means, his indication that we could prorogue, or giving his options as the Constitution allows him. And I just want to mention one other thing. There's this Granger seeming befuddled or bewildered about how the president could do this. We didn't yesterday when they said they were bringing a no confidence motion, the president didn't get up and decide he's going to put these things in the Constitution. For all the time that we have been in the 10th Parliament, much longer, but let's take the 10th Parliament, from 2011 to now, this has existed in the Constitution. The sense behind the Constitution, the framers of the Constitution said that there could possibly be these circumstances, and if there are these circumstances, here is what would serve Guyana best. To give the president these options. You can possibly dissolve, you can prorogue, as Odinga said, in the United States of America, a country that some people look to for guidance in some of these matters simply because of their age and longevity and their ability to have navigated some of these things before. They have some of the same powers that the president has. So this is constitutionally allowed, what the president is doing, and it's more than constitutionally allowed. I would go as far as to say with ease that it is what is expected of a mature statesman who has Guyana's best interest at heart.
Now, all of that aside, you spoke about passing the test and the fact that there's still time for room for the opposition and the government to work out their issues in Parliament. Does the opposition posture at this time indicate that they're willing to go back to a table to discuss issues in the very same mature way that all of you have spoken about? Mr. Granger said just on Friday that the time for talking is literally over, that he is giving his support to the no confidence motion, and attempts are being made from Monday's Parliament to support the motion as the first item on the floor. Now, it's all fine that the government is still optimistic, but the government also has to be realistic.
I wouldn't call it optimistic. I would say that the only way for the body politic to function in any society is where there's room left for what politicians do best. Negotiate, compromise, talk about a way forward. Like I said, if you're interested in bucking up everything, then there would be no talks. And then the nation is going to judge, and history will judge the people who walked away from those talks very, very harshly. I don't believe, Mr. Granger,